Artists might aim for permanence, but they also try to speak to the moment. That especially goes for the current moment, defined by the pandemic and the country's racial divide. One response to that is the Public Art Accelerator project, organized by the nonprofit Now and There. The effort includes a sign of what matters, a timely message in Spanish on a billboard in East Boston. Tell us about the current project are the executive director of Now and There, Kate Gilbert, and the creator of the sign and Accelerator fellow, Gabriel Sosa. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to start with Kate, because one of the things in the overview here is that you're working under different circumstances now with the pandemic. And I guess, like a lot of people during a time of stress, they might say, why are we doing art? And I guess the question you had to come to grips with here, why do public art at a time like this?
Well, to me, it seems obvious. Art heals, art provokes. And right now, in these moments of physical distancing, we can't get to the art that we would typically see in a museum. So let's bring it outside. And that's the mission of the Accelerator program, is to bring more of these projects that offer those moments of self-reflection, of joy, maybe even interrogation to Boston and to the neighborhoods that might need it or want it right now.
Gabrielle, your contribution here takes the form of a billboard in East Boston. There is a message. It says, "No es fácil, no te desesperes." In English, I guess, it ain't easy, but don't give up. I hope I was close. Is that basically the gist of the message here?
That is the gist of the message. It ain't easy, or it isn't easy, but don't give up, don't despair, don't lose hope. All of those, I think, fit into the category of what an accurate translation of that might be.
Now, I know because this is in East Boston, what I overlay are, the infection rates in East Boston, the racial disparities, especially in the Latinx community. But there's a personal source to this message too, isn't there?
There is, yes. And this is part of a series of billboards starting in East Boston, and then that will also go to Rossendale, Dorchester, Roxbury. And so all of these messages kind of come from different sources. Some of them are sayings that I grew up with in a Cuban home in Miami. Some of them come from songs, some from the poetry of William Carlos Williams, or at least are inspired by all of those things. This particular one is actually something that I grew up hearing my mom say.
And when did she say it?
Whenever things were difficult, whenever there would be any kind of moment of frustration or of despair. And that was something I remember her saying to me or to loved ones whenever things just got tough. She would say, "No es fácil, pero no te desesperes."
Okay, what about the effectiveness for the community here? This is in East Boston. Yes, most people in East Boston do speak English, but a lot of them speak Spanish. And I guess maybe if I were Spanish speaking and I saw this sign, I might somehow feel, at least intuitively, that this is about us. Isn't that maybe one of the things you're aiming for here?
Exactly. Yes. I grew up in a bilingual home, and I also work as an interpreter in the state court system, which influences a lot of my practice. So just kind of thinking about this duality and bilingualism and biculturalism. And I think as we all know, so many of the immigrant communities in the Boston area are neighborhoods that have suffered so tremendously during this pandemic. So yes, this is about them. This is about offering a small gesture of comfort and solidarity that can appear, I think, quite unexpectedly in someone's day.
Okay, what do you think about that? How this sends a message to the community?
Well, I was driving by the billboard on Saturday when it first came up, and I'm not a native Spanish speaker. And what I love about it is also, it is speaking to the Spanish speaking community, particularly right now, offering a moment of hope. But it's also reminding the rest of us who are not Spanish speaking, might be native to Boston, that there is a greater population that we are part of, and to think more globally about how we can support each other in these times. And that is very much what our work tries to do is to lift up artists. We brought 6 artists through this fast-paced curriculum, gave them a ton of resources, really fast-paced, and then funds to go make their project happen. So $25,000 to 4 other artists, 5 artists total, to say, hey, you guys are important. What you have to say is meaningful, and let's share that on a larger scale with all of Boston, not just the Spanish speaking or the ones that want to go to a museum.
Gabriel, you're hardly starting from square one in this project, but what did you gain from it?
Did I gain from it? I think just the value, or reflecting upon the value of what art can offer. I've thought a lot about what artists can do during these difficult times. And I think, well, maybe art isn't going to save anyone, but art can offer a moment of reflection. It can offer a moment of comfort or understanding. And that's what I hope to give. And I think it's gotten me thinking about what art and other artists can also offer in those terms.
Kate, with this project, you're also helping people who might be struggling financially and also struggling with limits on human contact. So how did you put that into the planning?
Well, the planning is really up to the artists, and what we try and do is support them with the technical understanding of how to make projects happen, some curatorial support. How does your work fit into the context of the art world, as well as direct connections with community organizations that might be also working on the same sort of set of issues. So with Gabriel connecting with some organizations in East Boston to say, is this something that we want to be putting out there in the public? We talk a lot about the responsibility of putting work in the public, and making sure that it is reflective of what those communities are interested in those days. But yes, there is also some cash funding, as you alluded to make these projects happen. Temporary art, public art and temporary public art are very expensive to make. They require a lot of construction, engineering, permits, as well as making sure that the artists can live, pay their rent, feed themselves and their families. So it's certainly no way an all-encompassing stipend, but it certainly, I think, gets them on the way to understanding how to make this work, doing that first step so that hopefully the artists can continue making larger scale public works in the future. Right now, I just want to point out, public art is a very closed loop system. The artists who get the commissions right now have already had experience. So there's this gap of how do we get artists experience at a manageable level so that they can go on and start to open up who gets opportunities to put work in public space.
Gabriel, you've also done a lot of work around the use of language in the public sphere. You've been a courtroom interpreter, I think, something like that?
Yes, I do work as an interpreter.
And that means maybe you're talking to people, maybe people going to court who mainly speak Spanish. So you're converting their language into another language in the public realm. But with this billboard, you're almost doing the opposite in a way. You're putting the Spanish into the public realm. What's the importance of that?
Well, I think it's something that I've been doing increasingly throughout the years, the last couple of years, and specifically thanks to the Now and There program, really thinking about how language can exist in the public space. And I think, as Kate said earlier, there's just a value in reminding us about the diversity of our community and how sometimes translation isn't always one directional. It can go both ways. So it was just a way to not only share this with people who I know can read it easily, but I think even those who can't, I like to think have some sort of idea of what it might say. And I think it's short and simple enough that it's easy to investigate, and hope that they'll be comforted when they discover what it is.
Right. Okay, what's also going on now around the country is that there's a lot of rethinking about public art and public art works, especially ones that were originally meant to be permanent. How did
Mhm.
that filter into the selections here?
Well, the artists are selected based on their portfolio in advance. So we didn't select projects; we selected artists who we believed in and had a lot of the strong qualities that we think makes the best public art for our times. But what we did observe through this program is that the artist projects that they were thinking about in the beginning and then later proposed changed radically due to first COVID. Gabriel's project is really speaking to that. But then the takedown movement that you're referring to has shifted a lot of artists in getting away from these sort of monumental objects into more sort of practice, socially engaged work. So for instance, Karthik Pandian, his project Out in All Directions from a Core of Merciless Love, is going to be looking specifically at the beheading of the Christopher Columbus statue in the North End Waterfront Park, and starting conversations about with others who are usually excluded from monument building in his process. So it's really opened up their projects to be more process oriented, light touch. Literally, one of them, Shaka Dendi's Bluetopia, is going to be blue lights that bathe the common sometime between now and the end of the year. Even the architect among the group, Ang Lee, her place of assembly is looking at the ubiquitous brick that we see all around Boston, and how that can be reassembled into, by us, people from Boston, into places of gathering and with community-focused events.
Yeah. And finally, I know you both have some kind of a web presence. So first of all, about the organization, Kate, if people want to find out more, what should they look for?
They should go to nowandthere.org.
And Gabriel, you also have at least some kind of a portfolio presence on the web?
I do. You can just look up my name, Gabriel Sosa. It's www.gabrielsosa.com. And then I'm pretty active on Instagram. It's @Studio Gabriel Sosa.